From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Afternoon Edition.
Right now on the Afternoon Edition, protesters hitting Bay Area streets on this President's Day against many of the current White House administration's policies. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ann Makovic. Demonstrations are getting underway in several Bay Area cities as we speak. In San Francisco, Chopper 5 right now flying over City Hall. This is a live look. You can see a crowd of people there gathering with signs. These protesters are calling to limit what they call the executive branch's overreach. Since the start of his second term, President Trump has signed 65 executive orders, many of them facing legal challenges. Protests are also planned in other cities around the country as part of a national day of action to show resistance to the Trump administration. In Oakland, Chopper 5 flew over a group just starting to gather at Fruitvale Plaza recently. They're planning to march to Lake Merritt right now, and that is where they are expecting to be joined by a bike and car caravan. Organizers say they are doing this to fight back against the mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. Demonstrators got a head start over the weekend. Yesterday, hundreds of people marched 21 miles from San Mateo to San Francisco. Our Dahl Lynn was there.
Marching for change, for dignity, and for legalization.
We will not sit back as our communities continue to get terrorized and criminalized and dehumanized. The people!
Activist Flor Martinez-Zaragoza says this march, this fight is personal.
We are demanding to have an immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to citizenship for millions. I myself am a DACA recipient and I do not have a pathway to citizenship. I've been a DACA recipient for over 10 years.
Her family crossed the border and brought her here when she was 3. Now at 29 years old, there's still no clarity about her future status.
They could take DACA away tomorrow and I wouldn't have any protections from deportations, and then I would be at risk of being deported.
President Trump's immigration policies are striking fear among many undocumented immigrants and their families. But Martinez-Zaragoza says they're here to speak up for those who are too afraid to step out of the shadow.
I personally lost my fear a long time ago growing up undocumented. If I was fearful, I wouldn't be out here today.
Hundreds of people stretching for blocks marched from San Mateo City Hall to San Francisco City Hall, making brief stops at Daly City and San Bruno City Halls.
The reason we chose to do this is because it's a resemblance of the walk that many of our parents did to come to this country.
21 miles and thousands of steps. San Mateo County Sheriff's Department and other agencies providing traffic control.
My feet are in pain, probably have blisters by the end of the day, but I feel like it's worth it for the cause.
I'm very tired, but I think the adrenaline has been kicking in. A lot of these girls have a lot of energy. Everyone's still chanting.
The young organizers remind the public it was the Republican Party and President Ronald Reagan who signed the last sweeping immigration reform bill into law back in 1986. They admit it'll take a lot more work and pressure for that kind of change under the Trump administration.
Honestly, I did not expect this many people to come out, but it's really empowering.
Turning fear into strength and unity. Martinez-Zaragoza says this is part of a lengthy journey for change.
When it comes to us asking for citizenship, we're really just asking for basic human rights.
Well, protests against the Trump administration also happening in Washington, D.C. Some people gathering outside the Capitol and on the National Mall this morning for what they call a Not My President's Day rally. A CBS News poll released about a week ago shows most Americans approve of President Trump's program to deport immigrants here in the U.S. illegally. All right, to our first alert weather now. It is a dry end to the 3-day weekend as we take a live look at the Golden Gate Bridge. A lot of people observing the President's Day holiday, so traffic's been pretty chill today. Meteorologist Jessica Birch shares our forecast, including the next chance of rain not too far away.
Throughout the Bay Area today, we are gearing up for partly cloudy skies and daytime highs right where they should be for this time of year, meaning upper 50s in areas like San Francisco and along the coast. All the way down into Redwood City, we're in the 60s, which looks very similar to our friends up in the North Bay near Napa, and all the way down into the Santa Clara Valley, too. Now, winds are light for us currently, but they are going to get gustier into the afternoon hours today. And the other big weather story for us has nothing to do with the winds. It has everything to do with rain, shockingly. We actually have a cold front sweeping throughout the Bay Area as we head into our Wednesday forecast. So not now, not tomorrow, but Wednesday morning we'll get a light sweep of showers throughout the Bay Area. It moves off into the east, and that cold front will actually bring in some chillier temperatures for our daytime highs on Wednesday. And it'll also give us about 1/10 of an inch of rain in areas like Santa Rosa, stretched all the way over into Napa. Less impressive numbers the more south we go. But after that, we start to warm up and dry up too. Taking a quick look at the next 7 days, we're in for a treat heading into this weekend with daytime highs jumping into the 70s with sunny skies around the corner in our inland spots.
Thanks, Jess. Sierra ski resorts are hosting a packed house for this President's Day holiday. Got a couple of inches of fresh snow yesterday, just in time to top things off. Crews working at Sierra at Tahoe say that they have been grooming the trails and making sure those lifts are ready to go and running smoothly. Skiers and snowboarders already braved heavy traffic to hit the slopes this weekend, and that includes the winds from Hayward.
Coming up was a nightmare. It took us 10 hours just to get from the bay up to here. Yeah.
I was going down the bunny slopes mostly, and I feel like the snow wasn't too powdery or too hard, so it was really nice.
And more snow is expected for the Sierra later this week. Here's a quick look at what is open and what is closed for the President's Day holiday. Most government offices and banks are closed, so are post offices, and there is no regular mail delivery. Courts and schools also closed today, but major stores and grocers are open. Concerns about Pope Francis's health today. The Vatican says the Pope is going to need to stay in the hospital as doctors treat him for a complex respiratory infection. Not clear at this point how long his hospital stay is going to be. The 88-year-old Pope's last public appearance was Friday, and his upcoming schedule has been cleared because of this illness. The Vatican says Pope Francis is in good spirits and was able to eat breakfast and read the newspaper this morning. The Trump administration is pushing forward, trying to broker a peace deal in Ukraine and save that ceasefire deal in Gaza. Natalie Brand has details from the White House.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Saudi Arabia Monday ahead of scheduled talks tomorrow between Trump administration officials and a Russian delegation about ending the war in Ukraine. President Trump commented from Florida.
We're moving along. We're trying to get a peace with Russia, Ukraine, and we're working very hard on it. It's a war that should have never started.
The president has said he could meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin soon, following their phone call last week. But Secretary Rubio says there's still a lot of work to be done.
The next few weeks and days will determine whether it's serious or not. Ultimately, one phone call does not make peace. One phone call does not solve a war as complex as this one.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine was not invited to the talks, and any deal made without them will not be recognized.
Secretary of State Rubio's trip to the Middle East comes as he's also in the region to discuss the future of Gaza and the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he and the Trump administration are working in complete coordination.
We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released.
Rubio said the U.S. is not in favor of waiting weeks and weeks for all hostages to come home. He also said Hamas cannot continue as a military or government force.
In addition to being in Saudi Arabia for talks about Russia, Secretary of State Rubio is also discussing President Trump's plans to resettle Palestinians out of Gaza so the U.S. can take over the Strip and develop it. At least 11 people are dead, thousands without power after destructive storms swept through the southeast. Water levels reached historic highs in Kentucky. Heavy rain, flooding, and tornadoes hit multiple states. Millions of people now bracing for an Arctic blast that is expected to set temperature records this week. Still ahead here at noon and streaming on CBS News Bay Area, NBA All-Star Weekend wrapping up. We have a closer look at the excitement that brought tens of thousands of people to the Bay. It was a jam-packed weekend that just wrapped up for the Bay Area with last night's NBA All-Star game. The festivities brought tens of thousands of people to San Francisco. It was lit. They came out to enjoy the excitement both inside and outside the Chase Center. Some people traveling hundreds or thousands of miles just to be there, even if they weren't going inside, where the average ticket for the big game was a few $1,000s. Our Amanda Harry spoke with some of the fans who came out.
You could feel the excitement everywhere you went, here inside a Chase Center, but also outside in Thrive City. People were ready to celebrate basketball and the Bay Area. It may have been NBA All-Star weekend, but the Bay still took center stage. The Warriors' Steph Curry won MVP and led Shaq's OGs to the win. Lifelong San Franciscan Mia Gayweiler was grateful to witness it with her family.
It's the best. It's so much fun.
She's been a Warrior fan for decades and has a special place in her heart for Curry.
My daughter has been a Curry fan since she was this big. At Curry camp, he was the one that delivered pizza in Hawaii and she fainted. And it's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Elijah McHenry didn't want to miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So even though he didn't have tickets, he traveled from Vallejo to hang out in Thrive City.
I could just go down the street and pay for BART and just go straight here and just chill out and watch the game.
Kofi Amu traveled farther, all the way from New Jersey, but he says it's worth it.
It's wonderful, to get the best players in the world up against each other, and it's just an amazing weekend with lots of stuff going on.
Amu was especially excited about experiencing the new All-Star format in person.
I think the All-Star game has suffered from a lack of competition, so it's amazing that they're changing things up, and we'll see how it goes.
Instead of one game, there were 3. 4 teams competed. The winning teams from the first 2 games advanced to the final, where a champion was crowned. But not everyone preferred it.
Actually, I like the West, with the East. I like that more.
But Gayweiler believes it made the game better.
It's the most competitive I've seen. I love it. I love the 3 games, young people against guys with bad knees and bad backs.
The Chinese New Year parade and street fair Saturday also attracted thousands of visitors over the weekend. Vibrant energy coming through Chinatown. The celebration featured entertainment, live performances, and shopping. The annual street fair on Grant Avenue, along with some other events, provided a significant economic boost all throughout downtown. Back to our first alert weather now, taking a live look at a foggy Golden Gate Bridge. Let's check back in with meteorologist Jessica Birch.
It's a mild start to the week for us here in the Bay Area, with our daytime highs today only topping off in the upper 50s and lower 60s, anywhere from Petaluma all the way over into San Francisco, down into the Santa Clara Valley as well. It'll be a partly cloudy day for us today, but we are gearing up for some changes in the forecast right around the corner. Before we get there, though, let's start off with the winds. It was nice and light for us this morning. Heading into the afternoon hours today, it gets a little bit breezier with wind gusts along our shoreline, anywhere up to around 20 to 30 miles per hour at times. Those winds will die down into the overnight hours tonight. Here's the other big story for us. It has to do with rain right around the corner as we head into this week's forecast. Late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, we're going to see a lot more dense clouds form, and then just from offshore, we get this weak cold front that's going to sweep throughout all of our communities, producing just a little bit of showers all the way up into the North Bay and down into the Santa Clara Valley. The timestamp's just above my head. This moves throughout those morning hours for those morning commute hours. Anywhere from the North Bay down into the peninsula, we could see close to around 1/10 of an inch of rain. A little bit less impressive numbers the more south we go, closer to the Santa Clara Valley, where we have a better shot of seeing about 1/100 of an inch of rain down near San Jose and Fremont. So nothing really crazy to write home about, but that's going to split our week in half with just some light showers here and just a little bit of snow for our friends up in the Sierra too. So if you were thinking of doing a midweek trip, keep that in mind. They're dealing with those dusting conditions, and you probably want to have the chains just in case. Now, after the cold front sweeps through Wednesday, we're in for a treat. We start to warm up fast. We jump into the mid-60s as early as Friday. Suddenly, we're talking about upper 60s and some lower 70s in the forecast, too, heading into this weekend's forecast. You know where we see those 70s? It's down into the Santa Clara Valley and off into the East Bay. That's going to be a beautiful setup for us as we dive into this weekend's forecast. So we'll keep you updated on that here in the Weather Center. For now, luckily, we're sitting with mild conditions today and tomorrow. We get that quick splash of showers for Wednesday, and we're in for a treat for the rest of the week here in the Bay.
We are celebrating Black History Month and taking some time to highlight trailblazers here in the Bay Area like Eric Williams. He is a world-famous inventor, and you've probably never heard of him, but without him, the medical industry would not be the same. His niece and daughter say his inventive streak started when he was young. Growing up in Bayview Hunters Point, he was the family tinkerer.
He was the one who would figure out how things worked. You know, take something from one thing and put it together and turn it into something else.
The first thing I remember him coming home with or having at his workstation was the cardiovascular catheter.
Now, hear the full story of the tinkerer who made medical miracles possible. Pretty fascinating. Coming up tonight here on KPIX at 5. And catch our special celebrating Black History Month this Thursday night at 7:30 and again Saturday night at 7. Still ahead here at noon and streaming on CBS News Bay Area, a new study suggesting what you eat might impact how you sleep at night. We'll explain the connection between diet and rest when we come back. Well, if you are looking for a better night's sleep, and aren't we all, it might apparently start with a better diet. Lots of Americans are tossing and turning the night away. The National Institutes of Health say 50 to 70 million Americans struggle with sleep disorders. About 1/3 of adults don't get enough uninterrupted sleep. And that's where your diet might be the best remedy. A new book called Eat Better, Sleep Better says the trick is eating more fiber and less saturated fat. That means more veggies and fruits, plus nuts, including walnuts and pistachios, along with seafood. Also, they say stick to whole grains and try not to save your biggest meal for dinner time.
It's a vicious cycle, or a healthful cycle, depending on how you look at it, right? So how you sleep at night influences what you choose to eat during the day, the next day. When we have poor sleep at night, we often tend to gravitate over more snack-type foods, less healthy
Muffins,
foods.
definitely muffins for me.
Higher
Yes.
fat, higher sugar, typically, right? And those types of foods tend to lead to poor sleep at night.
Another tip is looking for foods that are high in tryptophan. That includes turkey, which is why people might get better sleep on Thanksgiving. That is it for the afternoon edition. Remember, we are streaming 24/7 on the free CBS News app. Our next newscast is coming up at 5 o'clock. Meantime, have a great afternoon.